Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a primetime edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone out there had themselves a wonderful weekend. Happy Victory Monday to all the teams that won over the weekend in the NFL. Congratulations, well deserved wins. Some actually close ones, especially the ones with playoff implications. Some very, very good games, especially in the early docket. And of course, a wild one in Houston last night. Uh, Oh, my fight followers, good fights over the weekend. Two standout performances I'm going to get to. And of course, again, a heavyweight makes a moron out of himself. And of course, some news here in Cincinnati. Some of it, a little unsettling, some of it uncomfortable, however you want to describe it. But I'm going to go ahead and just talk a bit like it is. Hope everyone out there is having themselves a wonderful day. Actually, nice breezy day here, about 60 degrees here in Cincinnati. Just got off a long 12-hour work day where basically when you're in a leadership role, you're basically called on to do duties above and beyond your call of duty, and that's what I was able to do today. So I hope you guys are proud of me for doing it because that's what I signed for when I got the promotion not too long ago. And I just now moved to the day shift, so that's why my show is now on prime time, which is how I like it because I can see more of what goes on during the day and not have to go off a show and find out a bunch of news that happens that I miss. So now I get to see and view a lot of things that goes on. Hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful Monday, November 11th, 2024. And for the States, happy Veterans Day for those of you who are veterans or families of veterans. And thank you to those who served. I have to give you my salute as I always do. Now then, we're gonna talk some NFL to begin with. I'm gonna touch on the bigger games because I don't get there's some teams like the Giants and the Panthers and them who are just out of the playoffs. So I'm gonna dive into some of the better ones yesterday. Of course, the big one was in Kansas City. It was the Chiefs over the Broncos. Kudos to the Broncos for a hell of an effort, but let me just say this to all you guys who find something wrong with Kansas City winning. There's a reason why that team has won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years and might as well pull off the three-peat this year. There is a reason for it. They know how to win. They find ways to win. I don't want to hear about officiating because that's just stupid talk. I don't want to hear it because it's just stupid talk. I said many shows before, referees make bad calls every game, every time. There's a lot of hoopla from the morons in Cincinnati who cry about it because they're a bunch of cheap cowards because living in Cincinnati. But that's another story for another day. Referees make calls we probably look back and say they wish they would have made it. We get people here in this weird, maybe the word you use, short-sightedness to where they focus on one call that's missed, one call that's this. The game is 60 minutes, and there's going to be missed calls both ways because there's a lot of it both ways. I mean, there was even one where there was a missed pass interference on the Broncos that should have been called. So that went both ways. The real reason why the Denver lost the game, they had one drive in the second half that went more than 10 yards. You're not beating anybody, let alone the Kansas City Chiefs, when you have a drive and a half where one of their drives is more than 10 yards. You better be moving the ball up and down the field. I mean, Bo Nix played solidly for the Broncos. The defense did their job. Obviously, talk about a top 10 defense in the NFL. But you're not going to beat Kansas City when you basically have two touchdown drives and settle for a bunch of drives where I believe is that after the touchdown they only had like 68 total yards or something, some stupid low number. That's why Denver lost to Kansas City yesterday, not because refs missed calls. And of course, the story here was the blocked field goal, which because you want to say the referees cost him the game. I don't know who the referee was that blocked the field goal, but kudos to him, I guess. Since you guys want to say refs cost the Broncos the win. No, you had one drive in the second half that went more than 10 yards. You're not beating anybody in this league, let alone the Kansas City Chiefs, with that kind of an offensive output. You better be prepared to beat them because they're not going to beat themselves. Kudos to Denver for a hell of an effort, but it wasn't good enough. Bo Nix played solidly, but he did not outplay Patrick Mahomes. I'm not hearing it. I get why Denver's under a little fidgety these days because I said along, you guys have a solid team. I think you guys would challenge for a wild card spot. It's going to come down to week 17, Denver at Cincinnati for that last playoff spot. Whoever wins gets that last playoff spot. But Kansas City, the big game, of course, Sunday in Buffalo. I'll pick that one when I go to my picks in midweek. It's a hell of a game. It was a heck of a game. Good defensive struggle, both battle both ways. Both defenses showed out. I mean, we can say Steve Spagnuolo, one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. And with that personnel in Kansas City, they could really turn it up if they want to. And they really, really did when it mattered most. So Kansas City's still undefeated, whether the world likes it or not. And they deserve to stay undefeated just simply because they earned it. Like it or not, whatever. Even though this one didn't have playoff implications, it was New England over Chicago. I told you guys in Chicago countless times, and I will repeat it again. You're going to regret taking Caleb Williams over Jaden Daniels. It happened again. Caleb Williams has got a beating yesterday. I believe he was sacked 9 times. Actually, could have sacked another 5 or 6 times because I don't know what the hell Chicago's offensive line was. Drake May played solidly. Sacks by Anthony Jennings and Dietrich Wise Jr. And of course, Ramondre Stevenson had a solid game. But I said all along, you should have taken Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams because Jaden Daniels was the most NFL-ready quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft coming out. It was a no-brainer. I mean, look at him in Washington right now. So he's basically playing solid ball, good ball. But Caleb Williams, you guys in Chicago, you got a long way to go because you got punked on your home field by the Patriots. Your biggest luck out is the Patriots didn't have any real passing or worthy passing game to go to because they're going to rain you out 40-3 at that rate. You're just lucky the Patriots were only good enough to score 19 points. But the defense just shut you down. They could have had like 20 sacks if they wanted to. So, solid win for New England. Good luck in the draft, Chicago. Buffalo over Indy. This is to all the Dolphins and Jets people out here who thought those two were going to win the division. I told you to beginning. Buffalo, neither of them are better than Buffalo because Buffalo has the best quarterback in the division, a fella by the name of Josh Allen, who's better than Tua Tagovailoa and Aaron Rodgers put together times 20. That's how good he is. It's a no-brainer. He didn't play his greatest game, but still good enough to win, just simply because I don't know what the hell the Colts are thinking. They played Joe Flacco, who basically became Joe Fluco because he was just a pedestrian yesterday. I mean, he did a solid, sound job in Cleveland, but of course in India, I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know why they don't believe in Anthony Richardson, but it didn't matter. The Colts defense just got torched. Josh Allen didn't play all that great, but still found a way to hit deep balls in that defense. Did enough to win. Of course, sets up the big game this coming Sunday, Kansas at Buffalo. It's going to be a barn burner because whenever you get Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the two of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league with Lamar Jackson, you're going to have a good doozy. May the best team win. I'll pick that this week. Another good one, of course, was San Francisco over Tampa Bay. Story here, the return of Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this offense is different when McCaffrey is out there, but they still didn't necessarily look all that great. Brock Purdy threw for a season high, nearly 350 yards, a top 10 quarterback he is. Didn't necessarily play super great because Jake Moody was so hot and cold, but he hit the one that mattered most, the walk-off field goal as time expired. For Tampa Bay, I'll just say this. Baker Mayfield is playing his butt off. I mean, but he doesn't have anybody really to throw to. Of course, probably the best play he had was when he face masked Nick Bosa through that pass that set up the game-tying field goal or, go-ahead drive there. But Baker Mayfield's doing everything he can. The problem is you don't have Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. I don't know who the hell he's throwing to. But it was a big win for San Francisco to try and ride the ship a little bit because they haven't played all that great lately. I know part of it is no McCaffrey, but you'd think they would be better than what they are. But maybe the game of the day was in Washington. I got a chance to watch this. This was Pittsburgh over Washington. The acquisition of Mike Williams paid off. The game-winning touchdown where he smoked the sidelines. Basically, the defense made it the plays necessary. The thing I've been always impressed with Pittsburgh is how fast that defense can be when they get after the quarterback. I mean, there are times where the speed of the front four, especially when you have guys like Watt, Highsmith, who got injured, unfortunately, and of course, the new acquisition, Preston Smith, with guys like Larry Ogunjobi in the middle, and their linebacker and safe secondary crew. When they get at the quarterback, I mean, they can. I mean, they can. They have speed. They can actually get there real quick. I mean, they basically made Jaden Daniels not all that great, but you know, I mean, that's what Mike Tomlin does to rookie quarterbacks. I mean, Jaden Daniels didn't play all that great. Didn't play as bad as people said, but they had the chance to put this game away a couple times and couldn't get it done because the Steelers defense buckled down and just made it life terrible for Jaden Daniels when it mattered most. Big road win for Pittsburgh sets up the giant AFC North clash with Baltimore. You know how the Steelers and Ravens rivalry goes. I uh, I mean, I'd be coin flipping that one. But I'll just say this: everybody's already talking about the Coach of the Year candidates. You might as well add Mike Tomlin's name to the bunch, especially if they can pull off the win over Baltimore and find a way to win the division. Because I don't think anybody or any of you had them winning, you know, more than seven games. They already have 8 wins. I mean, what can you say? If they pull off the division, in my opinion, you got to hand Mike Tomlin the Coach of the Year. I mean, talk about getting more with less. That's what's going on in Pittsburgh. I mean, there's other talented teams in that division. Hint, hint, the one over here in Cincinnati. But discipline, doing your job, and knowing your role stands out more than anything else. That's what's going on in Pittsburgh. That's why the Steelers are 8-2, and that's what Mike Tomlin commends more than anything else. I mean, the little stuff like that, Mike Tomlin doesn't tolerate. That's why they're 8-2. Kudos to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Big one coming up Sunday against Baltimore. It's going to be a clash of the Titans. See a brief couple of scores here. Minnesota over Jacksonville. Jacksonville might as well just tank. Minnesota just got out of there with a win. They're trying to stay at pace with Detroit for the NFC North. Looks like Detroit might just pull away here soon. Chargers over Tennessee. Chargers pretty much are going to the playoffs. Justin Herbert has elevated himself to a top 5 quarterback in the league. Actually, top 4 quarterback in the league now with Mahomes, Jackson, and Allen. Add Herbert to that Fab 4. Bud Dupree and Tuitu Palulu just had made life living hell for Will Levis. Big win for the Chargers. Philadelphia over Dallas. If you can look unimpressive blowing a team out, Philadelphia finds a way to do it. I mean, they basically paid a Dallas team who just checked out. I mean, it didn't help that Dallas checked out. Jaden Hurts was solid, but they rested him for the fourth quarter because they have the big Thursday night tilt with Washington. Dallas is just, what can you say? They're getting what they deserve right now because I said it all along. This is the karma that's come to Jerry Jones going back to 1994 when he decided to fire Jimmy Johnson after the back-to-back Super Bowls. What can you say? It is what it is at this point. I mean, he's getting what he deserves. He doesn't care. They're not going to fire Mike McCarthy in season. They might just probably let him walk because he's in the last year of his contract. They still have the pending contract coming up with Micah Parsons. It's just a mess. But, Jalen Hurts starting to play much better in recent weeks after he led the league in turnovers at one point. I mean, he seemed to have calmed down a little bit. But for the most part, Philly just did anything and everything he wanted to. Sort of all-inspiring. But what can you say? When you play against a team that checked out, you're not going to look all that great anyways, even when you blow them out. This one, I'm going to do some bragging a little bit. I was on a show the other day with a couple great people from the Arizona area. And they like to talk about Cardinals football. Anybody who sees me on the show or sees me on the X app knows I've been a supporter of the Arizona Cardinals. And I said from the start of the season, they were going to be a surprise team. The first place Arizona Cardinals, something I never thought I'd say. Anybody thought would say the first place Arizona Cardinals. I thought they'd be a surprise team, but to be the first place in the NFC West with the 49ers, Rams, and Seahawks, you gotta tip your hat off to them. They're doing something right. They just punked the 40-year-old coward at the quarterback position. I mean, that's what he is a 40-year-old coward who's also a narcissist. Punked him from start to finish. Kyler Murray looks like he's fully healthy now. James Conner still a solid running back, and of course Marvin Harrison Jr. Defense just punked the bejesus out of the 40-year-old coward. You're talking about. I'll put up the stats here. We'll look at this here. I mean, Kyler Murray completed 92% of his passes. You know, he gets maligned for a lot of things, but he was solid yesterday and great. And what can you say? That team just basically just punched the Jets in the mouth and kept punching and punching and punching until there was nothing left to punch. I bragged about this because I saw last year, even though they weren't winning games, when they hired Jonathan Gannon as their head coach, you can almost sense a culture shift was coming. They got rid of all the toxic. Of course, they didn't win many games last year because Kyler Murray was still recovering from the knee injury he had, not last season, but the season before. They got a big road win in Philly, which showed they were ready to turn the corner. They've turned the corner this season. One thing I remind you, we talk about the NFC West standings. They're already 2-0 in the division, haven't beat the 49ers and the Rams. At this rate, that's the season finale. San Francisco at Arizona might be for the NFC West title. Let me remind you, Arizona doesn't have that tough of a schedule the rest of the way. I mean, the only tough game maybe you can think outside of the division games is maybe Minnesota. And Minnesota didn't look all that great yesterday. But what can you say about the confidence of the Arizona Cardinals? They just went in there and just bullied the Jets from start to finish. I get it. The Jets checked out. But you got to give Arizona credit. They just punked them. Before the Jets. Maybe the problem is Joe Douglas. Someone put up a list of the problems that he's had as his tenure as a general manager after they let Mike Tannenbaum go. When you think about, the coaching turnover, firing Robert Saleh, bringing in Aldridge, who's just been absolutely abysmal since he hired him. Of course, you have the 41-year-old narcissist coward as your starting quarterback. But they don't want to fire you can't fire the 41-year-old narcissist quarterback. Here's a problem they're going to have next season. That 40-year-old narcissist quarterback is going to be 41, a year older and not a year better. And you have 30 players on that roster next year on expiring contracts. It's basically, I'll be kind when I say it's a mess in New York because I can think of some other words. I'm not going to use a platform to use them because I'm going to stay clean. But right now, there's a reason why the Jets are a laughingstock. And that's why I laugh when some of you guys in New York thought you was going to overtake Buffalo for the AFC East. Congratulations. I mean, you basically are you're just an abysmal right now. You found a way to get to lose to the Patriots not too long ago. What does that say? I mean, you still have to go to Buffalo. You're going to get dog walked again, and you still have your matchups with Miami. They might dog walk you the way you're looking. You might as well kick the bucket on the season and start thinking long term because there's a lot of house cleaning that needs to be done before you guys are relevant again. And of course, the wildest game of the night took place in Houston. I'm looking at the stats as I'm talking to you. It's Detroit over Houston. Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions and somehow they win. Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions and they beat the Houston Texans. Problem here is I'm looking at these stats as I'm talking to you. Nothing more to say. C.J. Stroud was struggling in the second half. He threw interceptions, only had 68 yards. He's still a top 10 quarterback. Problem here is they try to force feed Joe Mixon. I think he had 23 carries for some ridiculous little number, like 50 yards or something. I'm trying to see this here. But the story here again was how you let a team beat you after forcing 5 turnovers on a quarterback. That's what I want to know what the deal is. Houston's going to win that AFC South, but the thoughts of them being an AFC contender to teams like Kansas, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, you might as well just shut the door on it. I get it. They'd have Nick O'Connell and Stephon Diggs is out for the year, but still, you think they'd be better than this. I mean, it was a tale of two wild games. I mean, how you gonna? I mean, if you pick up a quarterback 5 times and then you turn around and find a way to lose, it doesn't look good. I try to be the Houston backer because I didn't think they would. I don't know how they would be as a hunted. Again, they were just decimated by injuries. When you talk about two of the top three guys out for the year, when you think of Nico, Stephon Diggs out for the year, Nico Collins, he's out for a while. He's supposed to be designated for return. They held him inactive for yesterday, but it is what it is. So that talks about that concludes the Week 10 NFL talk. I want to touch on a couple things here because I touched on this over the weekend, and I got asked some questions about this from a couple of the respected pundits, especially in Kansas City and Baltimore, who I get along great with because they're the ones that brought this up, and and this needs to be mentioned. I mentioned this once. I have to mention it again. Anybody that knows me knows I stand on my own when it comes to being a Cincinnati sports fan, and unlike some of these other ones here in Cincinnati, I might have a bit of a different approach, one that a lot of people disagree with. I don't have a problem with it, but I think I validated my stance when I heard that Bengals fans decided to stalk the account of Zac Taylor's wife, the head coach of the Bengals. His wife started attack. I don't know what the context of the words are, but they started going after her after the loss of Baltimore Thursday night. Let me remind you guys of what this is all, what these guys are made up, and why I stand on my own. I don't like to put my personal vendetta. I get asked a lot of questions about you guys, so I'm going to answer it right now. After Carson Palmer requested a trade, they littered his house. Apparently spray painted his house, and they started, the familiar thing in the cultural sports world, jersey burning. And when he gets kicked, when he send him out the door, they call him every expletive in the book. That's part one. I'll give you part two. What's the problem with Cincinnati fans? The 2015 playoff loss to Pittsburgh. I'm not going to put the content out here because it's very, very disgusting, but I want you guys to Google it, and you guys can come back to me about it later. Especially Steelers fans who was at the game and follow me. If you was at the game in 2015 between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, you know what happened after the game. You can more well take it. You can talk about it. I won't because I don't like to talk about it. It's very, very disgusting for my nature to mention it. And it's a crying shame that sort of thing happened, because I said this all along. One of my three favorite sports fans to get along with are Steelers fans, because all they like to do is talk football. That's all. Bengals fans carry themselves in the most disgusting way I've ever seen after that loss to Pittsburgh. If you guys want to know, it was that same game that Montez Burfict walloped Antonio Brown upside down, and basically, and we know the rest of what happened after that. Fast forward to the behaviors from the 2020, the Super Bowl loss, to this. You guys in Cincinnati, day in, day out, conduct yourself like the biggest bunch of crock garbage I've ever seen. You guys find this way to reveal yourselves. It's outside of a narcissistic mask. Once a mask is off, it's over. It happened in 2015 when you guys carry yourselves after the loss of Pittsburgh, and you're doing it here with this. What kind of adults are you to carry yourselves day in and day out? The way you carry yourselves on these apps, the way you slander Chiefs fans, it's from what I heard, stealing their profile pics, and not them, but also them and their kids. Same with Ravens. You do the same with Ravens fans, Steelers fans, and Browns fans. Although I'll leave Browns fans for another topic for another day. And you guys wonder why I don't involve myself. Who the hell are you guys to do this sort of thing? Now you guys are using your mobile devices, these social media apps, to find Zac Taylor's wife and go after her after a loss of Baltimore. Here he's in Baltimore coaching his butt off, and here you guys going after a man's wife. It's bad enough I heard stories about you going after, doing this with other fan bases, especially Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore, with their fans and their families. Now you're doing it to your own. I'm gonna put this mildly. I do apologize for the word I'm going to use. You guys, I'll say it to you, Kansas City, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. You have my permission to use this word. You guys are cowards. It's been that way. Been that way for the last decade and a half. I don't care. I don't care if it's because of this. I don't care if it's because you want to put yourselves on the radio. I don't care if you put yourselves on TV in person. Whatever. I don't care what the reason for it is. You guys are cowards, and you guys are morons. I never had a problem with the Bengals team. I've always supported the team like you guys do. You guys couldn't sell me the idea of carrying myself like a coward the way you guys do. I had to bring this up because anybody who wants to involve me to attack somebody's wife, that's not happening. I wear this hat with pride. I wear this hat because I love it. I love the Cincinnati Bengals myself. I mean, we've had a garbage year. I get it because I can point to reasons for it. But do you see me carrying myself like a moron and a coward on the apps? Do you see me carrying myself like a moron and a coward on the show? Or do you see me carrying myself like a moron and a coward in person? No. What did that say about me if I did? I had to bring this up because, you know, you guys are about to miss the playoffs this season. I'll be studying everybody. I'm not talking about there's a lot of international fans in Cincinnati I get along with. England, Germany, Switzerland. I love them because they carry themselves first class. Love them. I'm talking about the ones in Cincinnati when they pick up the phone on these apps, when they get on these freaking live streams, when they go on the TV shows, the media, whatever. I had to bring this up because it's something that is very, very disturbing. Now I got that off my chest. Speaking of more Cincinnati news, I've been on a lot of shows in recent weeks, especially with my boxing followers overseas, and they asked me some of the premier athletes of my time. You know, Oscar Robertson, Ezra Charles, Aaron Pryor, Jelly Bench, Joe Morgan, Barry Larkin, Ken Anderson, and Anthony Munoz. They're the only ones that matter. I'm going to mention an athlete, and I say this because I've always said about soccer players, there's a passion and a spark that oozes out when they step on a soccer field, especially we talk about top flight soccer players. You know, of course, we talk about Liverpool, Man U, the World Cup, yada. Here in Cincinnati, an icon named Lucho Acosta, original name Luciano Lucho Acosta. This after the FC Cincinnati was eliminated by NYC FC, he talked about maybe not playing another game. You know, I guess there's some personal vendetta with his family. I'm not going to divulge into it because I'm going to give him that respect. But it was later revealed that FC Cincinnati was shopping this guy. I mean, you're talking about a Cincinnati icon right now. Why are you shopping your city icon who's taken Cincinnati by storm over the last 3 years, whose passion and spark just oozes out and draws 30,000 to TQL Stadium, and now you want to shop him? I mean, I saw the press conference after when I came home Saturday night after that game. I mean, he was pretty depressed. You can say I've said this about soccer players for the longest time. I said it again. When they ooze out, there's something the electricity that comes out that connects the soccer player to the crowd. Of course, for my international followers who follow soccer, you know, the World Cup, FIFA, etc. You guys probably can relate to this better than more deeper than what I'm about to talk about. That's Lucho Acosta here in Cincinnati, and they're talking about shopping him. It sort of hurts his feelings. Over the past 3 years, Lucho Acosta has captivated Cincinnati in ways like none other. I gotta say, if this is the last time we see Lucho Acosta in Cincinnati, thank you for all the memories. I hope it's not it. But if it is, thanks for the memories. Because you lit up Cincinnati in ways I haven't seen lit up in decades. Probably going back to the 1990 World Series when the Reds won it. I hope it's not it. Anything goes. As far as the game, you guys were just gassed. I mean, you played your hearts out. I've always said soccer players probably play with a deeper passion than, say, NFL players or NBA players or Major League Baseball players. There's a passion that oozes out, a spark, that electricity that oozes out, that connects from the players to the crowds. And Lucho Acosta did that here in Cincinnati when he played at TQL Stadium. Lucho Acosta, we all love you. We hope you stay. But if this is it, thanks for the memories. Now that takes care of all of that. Now on to boxing. Two standout performances over the weekend. The first one is Keyshawn Davis over the coward Gustavo Lemos. I call him a coward because he intentionally weighed 6 pounds over, because he thought it was going to give him an advantage. One right cross to the chin. Lemos is down and out. Keyshawn Davis wins. You don't see just guys out of nowhere just explode the way this guy did. I mean, the circumstances was there fitting. Keyshawn Davis is a star of the making. He basically put the world on notice Friday night when he just pasted Lemos on the canvas. Now, mind you, it's the same Lemos who gave Richardson Hutchins all he can handle in a fight that some people thought Lemos won. I'm not giving him the benefit of that because he's a coward. But Keyshawn Davis basically opened a lot of eyes and showed the world the potential he has. What a performance in his own hometown of Norfolk, Virginia, the home of the late Pernell Whitaker. Now Keyshawn Davis basically lit up the scope the way Whitaker used to do. And now the scope in Norfolk, Virginia is a big fight town thanks to Keyshawn Davis. Big win, kudos. Now he wants to Gervonta Tank Davis, who doesn't have the balls to fight a real fighter. Let's see if Gervonta Tank Davis has the balls to fight him. I'll be sitting back and watching. Another impressive performance took place in Philadelphia. The third best fighter in the world, Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Methodical breakdown of Pedro Guevara in 3 rounds. You know, Guevara's no slouch, but Bam, it was easy work for Bam. A straight left hand that floored him the first time. Then, of course, the perfectly placed uppercut that put him down and out. Bam Rodriguez keeps his belt. Talk about fighting the other champion. I can't think of his name, but I think he'll wipe him out. They're talking about him fighting Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, one-time pound-for-pound top pound-for-pound fighter, which I think at this point is Bam Rodriguez is going to dog walk him because Chocolatito has seen better days. I'd rather see him in the unification fight just to clean that out. Maybe a fight with Jiro Nakatani coming up. That should be a great one. But the top 3 fighters in the world right now. Number 1, Alexander Usyk. No-brainer. Number 2, Naoto Inoue. No-brainer. Number 3, Jesse Bam Rodriguez. No-brainer. As much as I love Terrence Crawford, as much as I love him, he hasn't been active enough. I put him 4th. And 5th is Artur Beterbiev. Jesse Bam Rodriguez, when he gets out there, he's a highlight reel of the making, especially when the way he demolished Juan Estrada not too long ago. They were talking about a rematch, which doesn't make any sense. I think Bam just steamrolls him easier this time. But Jesse Bam Rodriguez may have had the performance of the weekend when he just dog walked Pedro Guevara, a strong, sturdy fighter in a super flyweight division. Bam Estrada just basically out of the southpaw stance, just broke him down with the body punches the first 2 rounds, hit him with the left hand that floored him the first time, and of course the uppercut that put him on his back, and that was all she wrote. I mean, the future is bright for Bam Rodriguez. If you're a fight fan and you don't like Bam Rodriguez, please get checked for CTE. I don't want to deal with you. Maybe the most exciting fighter in the sport right now. Reminded me a little bit of what Michael Carbajal and Mark Johnson used to do back in those days in the flyweight divisions. Same way, just methodically broke you down before they put you out. Jesse Bam Rodriguez is him right now. Top 3 fighter pound for pound. One of the things I like to do, and I usually do this for my fight followers, because some of these new newbies still don't have a clue what it's like to be in a ring and seem to call guys like myself an old head. Have at it. 41 years ago today, maybe the gold standard of the 4 Kings took place. This was at Caesars in Las Vegas. The late marvelous Marvin Hagler and Manos de Piedra Roberto Duran. This was 3 years removed from No Moss. If you guys remember, the story there, Roberto Duran quit. He just excuse after excuse after excuse. you know, has a really listless fight against some guy named a fellow named Kirkland Lang, God rest his soul, where he was just absolutely abysmal, and they were calling for his head. Had a tough fight with Roberto Benitez and loses that one. Gets a mediocre win over a faded Pino Cuevas. Was set up to lose to Davey Moore, but beats the brakes off of Davey Moore to win the junior middleweight title. Marvin Hagler, of course, the reign of terror as the middleweight champion of the world, was knocking everybody out after being basically hoisted and robbed in his first fight against Vito Antuoformo back in '79. The question going into this fight was, can Roberto Duran survive the viciousness of Marvin Hagler? Because Hagler was knocking everybody out at that point. Roberto Duran fought a tactically strategic fight, utilizing the ring, making Hagler miss, making him pay. Hagler even said punches that Duran was hitting him with, he didn't know where they were coming from. As the fight wore on, the feeling was maybe Hagler gave Duran a little too much respect because of the legacy stature that Roberto Duran had at that time. But Roberto Duran showed more than just a guy that just with a chin and wants to rough you up. He actually had advanced boxing skill and showed it a lot for a big chunk of this fight. As the fight wore on, Duran started to build a lead on the scorecards, and it was time for Marvin Hagler to start to dig deep. And basically, he started to dig deep, and the fight basically started to become more of a two-way action because Hagler started to turn it up because he had to, because he was behind. Roberto Duran, went toe-to-toe with Marvin Hagler as rounds going on, especially in the 15th round, probably one of the greatest final rounds in boxing history, where they just really went at it. I mean, Roberto Duran might have had this. You're talking about two of the sturdiest chins, maybe in boxing history, with these two, because you could not hurt either guy at that time. But Marvin Hagler was forced to dig deep, find it within himself to win the last 4 rounds of that fight and basically win a close but legit and honest unanimous decision. But maybe a flaw was probably exposed by Roberto Duran, because after the fight, Sugar Ray Leonard, who was doing commentary for HBO, apparently Roberto Duran told Sugar Ray Leonard, "You can beat this guy, just box him." Basically, he planted the seed in Sugar Ray Leonard's head for what took place 4 years later. You guys know the story there. Leonard got Hagler in the ring and won a controversial split decision. But Roberto Duran on this, from the Davey Moore fight into this fight, might have just had his personal redemption from No Mas, simply because when you think what happened to him after No Mas, he hardly could leave his house. He had to go outside with a lion when he was in the streets of Panama. Basically, they were throwing rocks at his house, rocks at his car. Basically, he was just getting taken to the woodshed because of No Mas. But the wins over Moore and the performance against Hagler, I think maybe that helped quarrel it. People still remember him for No Mas, but let me remind you, his legacy was before No Mas, when he cleaned out the lightweight division and beat Sugar Ray Leonard in Montreal in 1980. And of course, I mentioned the performances against Moore and Hagler. He gets knocked out later on by Thomas Hearns, but it was a bad style matchup because Thomas Hearns was a freak of nature, a 6'2" super welterweight who placed a right hand on Duran's chin, and Duran's still seeing stars. But Thomas Hearns had that kind of power. Duran, of course, had a 5 years after that where he was hit and miss. Did go on to beat Iran Barkley in the fight of the year in '89 in basically a head first rock'em sock'em matchup. But Roberto Duran, you can say a lot of things about Roberto Duran, but he feared no man, and he basically, this night against Marvin Hagler, became the only fighter during Marvin Hagler's title reign to take Marvin Hagler the 15-round distance. That was the 15-round distance, and it said a whole lot because Marvin Hagler was knocking guys out. Of course, for Hagler, sentenced to a top 10 all-time great middleweight. After Duran, he beat Mustafa Mahancho. Of course, sets up the 8-minute firecracker of a fight with Thomas Hearns, which had the greatest round ever, which was round 1 of Hagler-Hearns. If you guys fight followers know what I'm talking about. Beat John Mugabe in basically a give and take fight that was tougher than expected, but it showed the wear and tear of Hagler. And of course, loses to Leonard And after he loses to Leonard, he just walks away for good. But 41 years ago today, when you think about the four kings, Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, and Marvin Hagler, this fight between Marvin Hagler and Roberto Duran turned out to be the gold standard of the four kings. They gave us a hell of a fight, 41 years ago today. Something that was basically unexpected because people were expecting Hagler to steamroll them. But what can you say? There's a reason why those two are all-time greats and our first ballot Hall of Famers. God rest the soul of marvelous Marvin Hagler. Shout out to the great Roberto Duran for a terrific fight that night. And one last thing before I wrap this up, another boxing news that this has crossed my mind. Deontay Wilder wants to make excuses again. Apparently, he had some kind of a shoulder problem and a labrum problem after he lost to Joseph Parker and Zhilei Zhang. You are 0-4-1 against quality opposition. Actually, you should have been 0-5 because everybody knows Tyson Fury gave your ass a boxing lesson. He did. Anybody with a brain knows Tyson Fury gave Deontay Wilder a boxing lesson in the first fight, and Wilder was gift-wrapped a draw. What happens in the second fight? Tyson Fury goes to Vegas and just punks Deontay Wilder from start to finish. Fight's over. And, of course, the third fight, Deontay Wilder floors a couple times early, but Fury punks him again. It basically didn't win a round against either Joseph Parker or Zhilei Zhang. Of course, the Zhang fight where he hits him with the right hand, spins around, turns his back on him, and is on his back. Fight's over. Deontay Wilder, I'll just say this. He had a belt, and people act like that belt meant he was going to make history. I mean, here he was not during his reign slandering Mike Tyson's resume. I mean, he may have a case for it, but he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Slandering this guy's resume, that guy's resume. He says George Foreman and Ernie Shavers doesn't have the power that he had. But basically, the combination of Deontay Wilder's opponents couldn't carry George Foreman's jockstrap. But it's the same thing over and over again with him. He gets gift wrapped a draw against Fury the first time, and he talks about how he was robbed of the long count when it wasn't a long count. Jack Dempsey is turning in his grave. He gets punked by Fury the second time in a fight where he fights Fury fights Wilder's fight and just beat the brakes off of him from start to finish. And for the ninth, of course, there's an image of the ninth round where his eyes were so wide open, like he basically like a holy crap look on his face, because he was in for a rude awakening. We know what happened in the third fight. First 4 rounds was a back and forth. 5th round on, Fury dominates him. One right hand, Wilder's hanging on the ropes, just falls face first, has to be carried across the ring. Against Joseph Parker, he doesn't even win a round, and he gets punked by Zhilei Zhang. Deontay Wilder is officially irrelevant. And when Fury outboxed him the first time, his 5 minutes of fame were up. The second fight was basically a full-scale exposure to where everybody knew what Deontay Wilder was at the end of the day. Just a fighter whose skills were not all that great. He had a punch. I mean, he's a heavyweight with a punch. I'm not going to say he doesn't have a punch. But outside of a punch, what was he? Nothing. Fury exposed him 3 times. So did Joseph Parker, and basically Zhilei Zhang just finished what was left of him, which basically was nothing. Keep up the excuses, Deontay Wilder. No one's buying your act. 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, Deontay Wilder being a moron. What can you say? We tried with you, Deontay, but you're nothing at the end of the day. And so on that note, we'll wrap up the primetime edition of Sirhan on X. Actually, a very nice day out here in Cincinnati. It's around 60 degrees. I mean, got a chance to get a cool breeze after working 12 hours today. I will be back tomorrow night. For all of my followers in England who are watching, tomorrow night, we celebrate the 25-year anniversary of a British icon who got his revenge and his redemption more ways than one. And it was a long time coming, and he finally got his due justice. I'll talk about it tomorrow. Until then, I hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful night. Enjoy the night. Sleep well. Take care of yourselves. Of course, make self-care a priority. Good night, and God bless.